All right, the FIBA World Cup starts Saturday, so let's preview Brandon Ingram and Team USA, why it's so good that many players are here in New Orleans working out, and answer your questions in a live episode of Locked On Pelicans. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pelicans, your daily New Orleans Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On Pelicans, the daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Pelicans and NBA, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, available wherever you get your podcasts and right here on YouTube. I'm your host, Pelicans Insider Credential member of the media, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. Here with y'all, another Thursday live show. We do these in the off season every Thursday at 7 p.m. Central. So thank you for making Locked On Pelicans part of your day, for joining me here in these live shows. This is my chance to interact with y'all, to answer your questions live here. I love seeing the chat pop up with things. So if you've got questions, throw them in there. The only thing I ask is don't spam the chat. I'll either get your question or maybe I won't, but we'll do my best here. So don't just keep like posting it and posting it and posting it. And don't be a dick. Those are kind of the only things that I look for here. So thank you for making Locked On Pelicans, again, your first listen. If you want to support the channel, become an everydayer. If you are an everydayer, let me know in the comments down below. We can also, if y'all want, although I think I upset many of y'all with my Wednesday show of what if the New Orleans Pelicans get a trade for James Harden. We can talk about that, but y'all, I definitely think the general consensus there was no James Harden. Nola Starbar says, well, I missed the show yesterday. We getting Harden or what? Probably not getting Harden, but it was interesting to look at what it would mean for the rotations and lineups here. Yo, Jake, everydayer. I guess that's how you spell it here. You're a saint, bro. I appreciate it. Technically, everydayer is 2 words, is what I've been told by corporate Locked On, your team every day. Nola G, let's go. Mr. Every Datter here. I like that one too. That's really great. Kevin Byers is always here. Hello, my man. Keegan Mills says he's glad to be here. I'm glad y'all are here. So let's get into a little bit of Team USA first. We'll get to your questions and everything with that in due time here. There's no rush. We can kind of do whatever we want tonight. There's no time frame on all of this. So Team USA. So the FIBA World Cup starts on Saturday for Team USA, of which Brandon Ingram is a part. In their Group C games, they play New Zealand on the 26th at 7:40 in the morning, Greece on the 28th, 7:40 in the morning, and then Jordan at 3:40 in the morning on August 30th. They should win the group. They should win the group pretty easily. New Zealand doesn't have as much talent as Team USA. Greece is without Giannis. That would change things maybe, but he's not playing. And then Jordan is kind of the underdog in the group out of all of these teams here. Team USA should go 3-0. And frankly, they should honestly kind of like cruise, I think, to at least the finals. I don't know if they'll actually win the World Cup. There's 1 or 2 flaws with the team that I don't think is that big of a deal. There's just some other really talented teams out there. The French team looks good. Canada looks really good too. But I do like this roster. And what I think is so interesting about it is all of the players on Team USA were invite only. There were no open tryouts or anything like that. All of the players on this roster were like specifically selected and invited to be on the roster. And that goes for Brandon Ingram too. So when Brandon Ingram is on this team in the starting lineup, that tells you what the coaching staff and Grant Hill, who also helps run Team USA, really thinks about him. It kind of tells you a lot about his reputation around the league, doesn't it, for him to be invite only? And that's what I think is like a really great thing. They have enough star power there with some of the guys on the team that can really carry them, right? Halliburton, Anthony Edwards, Jaren Jackson Jr., along with Brandon Ingram, have all been all-stars or all-stars in the past year. You have the reigning Rookie of the Year, the reigning Defensive Player of the Year on this. And I'm excited to watch them play like more meaningful games. You know, they handled Spain pretty well, I thought. Coming back from 16, 19 points down against Germany, I thought was pretty impressive. Their star power kind of pulled them out of that one when they looked not great. But this is really just a solid team. The only change you could really make might be, getting Tyrese Halliburton into the starting lineup over Jalen Brunson. But Brandon Ingram hasn't had to do too much. Again, a lot of star power, these other exhibition games, which don't mean a ton. But when you look at him on there, it's him and Anthony Edwards are like the bucket getters in the starting lineup. Like the dudes where you're like, we need to score. It's going to be him. It's going to be Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards has looked legitimately good. So I think you're going to see Brandon Ingram start to kind of influence the game, impact the game more so than he has. And he didn't do it a ton, say, against Germany. But I haven't been worried about that with him. We know what he's capable of doing. I just like that he is on this team, was selected to be on this team, as the honor that is, and then is just going to get really good, strong reps in going into next season. He should come into the season very, very sharp, I think, because of that. The other thing that I'm kind of excited about with him is something that doesn't get talked about enough, and that's on the defensive side of the ball. FIBA has different rules. It's much more physical than the NBA is. Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to be a freaking monster. One of the best shot blockers in the league, and there's no defensive 3-second violation. He can just camp down low and take away the rim from opponents. It's going to be fun to watch. The way you probably beat Team USA is get him in foul trouble, and he makes some dumb fouls at times, I think. And if you can get kind of that shot blocking out of the middle, on defense, this team should be then beatable. But Brandon Ingram can kind of dig in and play more physical and use those like physical tools he has, with his size, with his length, with the like top end athleticism that he has. You can kind of body guys up a little bit more, swallow guys up a little bit more. And so I'm excited to see him put in work on the defensive end. So even if you look at him in the box score and you don't see a ton of points, a ton of shots, watch what he does defensively, because if he can carry some of that into next season, I think that's a really big, important thing for the New Orleans Pelicans and what their year could look like. They want to hang their hat on defense. They were the 6th best defense last year. This is something that head coach Willie Green really preaches. If he can step up on the defensive side of the ball, I think that's something that could be huge for the Pelicans in their playoff chances. If they can start getting more easy transition buckets defense turning into offense, good defense turning into easy offense when they're going to be going through a transition a little bit when it comes to what their offensive identity is going to be like next season with a new offensive scheme, more of a movement-based offense under associate head coach James Borrego. That's only going to make things easier. There are going to be times where they're still figuring it out. They still struggle in the half court. So if you can get stops, if you can get in transition in the fast break, run, score, super easy buckets, yeah. And if Ingram can be a big part of that, that sounds really good too. So let's get to some of your questions. Let's talk a little bit more about the players here in New Orleans working out. That's going to be coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Then it's y'all's time to shine here, and I will answer your questions. Put them in the chat. Let me know what y'all want to have answered and just kind of talk about in today's show. So before we get to that, today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is about to kick off, and FanDuel is giving you a chance to win all season long. Because right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you can get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. You pick the black and gold, the Saints to win the Super Bowl. And after that opening drive in preseason game number 1 with Derek Carr throwing that touchdown pass and Alvin Kamara being used properly, finally, I'm pretty hyped. So if you pick them to win every time they win in the regular season, you get bonus bets. So just pick any team to win the Super Bowl and you'll get bonus bets for every victory. And you can use your bonus bets on spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon, the official sports betting partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday for y'all, breaking down everything you want to know about this Pelicans team, the #1 Pelicans podcast out there. We do these live shows every Thursday at 7 p.m. Central. I am thrilled to have y'all in here with me, and we will be going for a while on the show, answering your questions till y'all kind of run out of everything. But also, I could just keep talking for days, probably. We are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. For your second listen, go check out Ross Jackson, host of the Locked On Saints podcast, giving you everything black and gold as they go through preseason telling you who to keep an eye on, who's going to make the team, who won't, what Derek Carr is going to look like here. So let me get into some of your comments here and things in the chat. Lonnie Live says, the hell with Harden. Yeah, fair enough. Melvin McCraney Jr., we should not even be talking about James H. Okay, I think I can kind of understand what y'all are saying about James Harden. NOLA Star Bar, agreed. Happy not to get headache Harden. Pelican says, no thanks to Harden. Is there one person in the chat that wants James Harden on the team? If you could not give up, if you can for sure keep Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson, Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, so basically you're putting CJ in the trade. If you could keep those guys, would you go for Harden? I think there's an interesting fit there, whether he starts or even comes off of the bench. And if he comes off the bench, it does allow you to probably start both Trey Murphy and Herb Jones, which is something that people, the big question is which one will start. Well, what if you can get them both in the starting lineup by going small here? Inferno says, nope, LOL. Nola Moley says, no one. We do it. Okay, there's two here. Okay, Levon Bullock says me with some laughing, crying emojis. King T says me. Kevin Byers says never, cancer. Pelican says no. So, okay. Aramis Jones says for sure, especially if he plays the way he did towards the end of last season. Put up a couple 40-point games in the postseason, almost helped the 76ers beat the Boston Celtics in the playoffs. So I think there's more to him there. The question is, would he resign? And I don't know about that. And also, clearly, he doesn't mind kind of going scorched earth on things, and that's not particularly great. On the Team USA front of things here, says Inferno, says BI playmaking also defensively has been amazing. Yeah, I really like him with what he's doing there. Aramis Jones says, I think he's better than Anthony Edwards. I get Anthony Edwards is a rising star on the come up, but I think that offensively, Brandon Ingram is a more complete player. Defensively, Anthony Edwards is. Look, Ant is going to be a bona fide superstar in the league. Like, he really looks like that to me. He looks like an elite end scorer. Brandon Ingram's got the 3-level scoring. He can get to the rim. He can certainly shoot from mid-range. He needs to take more threes, but he's become a pretty good 3-point shooter. I like that kind of diversity, that repertoire, the bag that he has, being able to score at all 3 levels. And I think he's more of a playmaker than Anthony Edwards is. I don't know if he'll show that off entirely here during all of this, but I think they're similar-ish levels. I think Anthony Edwards has a chance to lead the league in scoring. And I know that Brandon Ingram in theory could do that. I just don't think he's ever going to be in a position to do that. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see how he's used here. And I don't know if this is the best way to kind of compare them with everything. Keegan Mills says, do we know if all the other non-USA games are national TV? I believe ESPN has the rights in the US to all of them. And I think they're all supposed to be on TV. It might be ESPN Plus, ESPN3, whatever the heck they call it now. But I believe they're supposed to be entirely on ESPN or somewhere else. So you should be able to get all of the FIBA games. You can also sign up for 1886, 1986, something like that. There's a service that has the streaming rights online for it. I forget what it is, basketball, and then it's a year, a number, something like that. You can sign up for that too, and it's actually a pretty good service as well. So if you want to watch all of them, and look, there's other things to watch. You have Josh Giddey on the Australian team. You have Jonas Valanciunas on the Lithuanian team. So there are other Pelicans players to watch who are getting reps and doing things here in FIBA. Daniel Brown says, every dayer here, love the show, Jake. Thank you so much for being in here. I love seeing these sorts of things, so it is a lot of fun. Trey says, Jake is the GOAT always. I don't know about that. I might call Ross Jackson the GOAT. I think he's a better podcaster than I am by far. But I have fun here with y'all, and I'm just happy doing that, and that's the important thing. Levon Bullock says, Harden brings in money. Is that money? I don't even know what that is, that emoji there. But yeah, it could be money. He probably spends money at certain establishments too. So that is also something. Stimulates the economy that way, right? That's a good thing for the city of New Orleans. So Smurf Takes Off says, every day. Absolutely. I love it. So one of the things I also want to talk about here, and we'll get your questions and everything into the show as well, is how many players are working out in New Orleans right now? When they're releasing the videos and stuff. We did the whole show basically, or half the show the other day, on how good in shape Zion looks. And yes, he does. And he's capable of doing that, right? That show was more, it's a make or break year for him than just he looks amazing right now. So he is in shape. He's here, but look at how many other players are in all that. You saw Trey Murphy, you saw Herb Jones, you saw Jose Alvarado, you saw CJ McCollum. All of these guys are here working out and putting in the work together. They do kind of work separately, individually, and all of that. But the fact that there's so many still here in New Orleans when they could be anywhere, I think is a wonderful thing. I think we saw a couple other players there too, and I'm blanking. EJ Liddell was there. I love this. Instead of just going home and working with their people, work out at the facility, still with their people, but also kind of a little bit of supervision from New Orleans. Build some chemistry with those guys too. They're having dinners and meals together. They're talking and kind of planning things out and working on things. This is a very big, important year for the New Orleans Pelicans, and I want to see them as focused as possible, trying to get off to the best start they possibly can, something that has not always happened here in New Orleans. And so if they're all working out together, building that sort of chemistry, just like doing all the right things, right? The right things, right? That was said terribly, but you get what I mean. Doing all of the correct things. Like, I love this. In years past, Zion Williamson has been working away from the facility. Herb Jones, lives in the gym and doesn't take vacations, but it's not always the New Orleans gym, and here he is. Trey Murphy, instead of being home, is focusing on his craft, trying to get to the next level, because we all think very highly of him and what he's going to be capable of doing, and he's doing it in the facility. There's a commitment with that, and I think that's what is an awesome thing to see out of all of these guys out here in New Orleans putting in the work. I just saw a Jackson Hayes question in here, and I'm almost confused by that. Why are we talking about Jackson Hayes? Jackson is focused and energized. I think Jonas got in the way of us really focusing on Jackson, and he could be good. Okay. No, I'm not a Jackson Hayes fan. I actually went on the Locked On Lakers podcast to talk with them about Jackson Hayes after the Lakers signed him, and they were like, why give up on him after just 4 years? He was the 8th overall pick here, but yeah, he wasn't good. I said it, we're not supposed to swear on the Locked On shows, and I was like, yeah, he's not effing good at basketball in particular. And there's kind of concerns about it, right? There were concerns about his work ethic and things like that. I don't mind guys on the bench laughing, having fun. I don't mind guys posting their highlights, even if they played 2 minutes and were terrible on Instagram. Go do your thing. But I don't know. The laughing on the sideline when they were losing and he wasn't playing was always a frustrating situation to see with all of that when other guys were not happy with it. And to say that he was not that they prioritized Jonas or got him in the way of Jackson Hayes. I mean, no, he started half the season last year, 2 years ago. The year they made the run into the postseason against the Phoenix Suns. He got an opportunity to be in the rotation at the beginning of this year. He has a very clear arc to every season. Finishes the season strong, has a spot in the rotation next season, doesn't play well during that time, gets dropped, comes back, plays okay a little bit, gets dropped again, comes back, plays well to end the year, and you just go through this cycle, and there wasn't a lot of consistency from him. He had plenty of opportunities to carve out a strong role. And he just wasn't good and not capable of it. He wasn't a very good rebounder. Part of this is also on the coaching staff and not just on Jackson Hayes. I want to be clear on this, that I don't want to sound like I'm just crapping on him. They used him very poorly at times. That's a pick and roll lob threat, right? You should use him in a way that you would use Jarrett Allen if you traded for him from the Cleveland Cavaliers, as a lob man. Have him set a pick, run a pick and roll, and then bomb it up there for him because he's a freak athlete that can jump and throw it down. And they just didn't do that. They would put him in the short corner to be that anchor. When you're running certain sets, almost always will you have a guy in one of the corner 3 spots, maybe both of them, right? Those corners there. And because that's such a high efficiency, high percentage shot, defenders won't leave that person. It just anchors a defender to them. It takes away a help defender at the rim, or you get to take that shot. You want a shooter in that spot. They used to use JJ Redick there. They used to use Eric Gordon there. They put Jackson Hayes in that spot, and it makes no sense for a 7-foot non-3-point shooting big man to be standing there. No sense at all. So a lot of why he also wasn't successful was on the coaching staff and how they used him offensively. And then defensively, he Keegan Mills says it. He never knew where to be on defense. He would get lost a lot. Like, I don't know. I don't look back at the Jackson Hayes stuff with like, oh, what could have been. Like, he had chances. He just wasn't good. He might blossom elsewhere, but it just wasn't going to be here in New Orleans for whatever reason. You know, this is just one of those things where it needed to be like a fresh start elsewhere. He was just not good. Alexander Wynn says Jax was definitely not good. He played some good minutes when he was put in a corner and forced to play well to stay on the team. Yeah, like it was just kind of like all around bad and nothing great. Nola G has a question here that I want to answer coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans, a new court design. I love it. Let's take a look at, not look at it, but talk about that coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday, coming to y'all like no one else does. The #1 Pelicans podcast, breaking down everything you want to know about this team, the good, the bad, the trade targets, trade requests, if it's James Harden, jerseys we've talked about, court design we're going to get to, all of the stuff here. And yeah, thanks for joining me on the live show. We do these 7 p.m. Central. This is fun. I'm happy y'all are here. And thanks for making Locked On Pelicans part of your day. Just kind of as simple as that. All right. Nola G says, what are your thoughts on the new court design? I love the snippets in the video. I love everything about what we've seen from that. The little shots that we've seen, the lighter blue looks good. I love the theme and everything that they are trying to do. Tie it more into the state of Louisiana, the Gulf South region that is a little swampy, right? That is a little kind of coastal wetlandsy and all of that stuff. You know, they try and sometimes force like themes on the team. Like Mardi Gras has been done and done and done. Do something a little bit different that shows there's more to the region, to the culture of all of us than just that. And I think that new court design is definitely doing it. I love the lighter blue on there. The black looks really good. I can tell you they actually, I won't get in trouble for this. Maybe I will. Whatever, let's do it anyway. I just kind of said it. I don't know if I can go back on it. This is why you come to the live shows. You never know what's going to happen here, things. But they've looked at doing like a swamp kind of alligator themed jersey in the past, like whole uniform set. That was kind of like centered around all of that. I've actually seen the concepts of them. They're very cool, but I don't think those are ever going to actually happen. But I'm glad they're just kind of tying it into the region of Louisiana. Alexander Wynn says, all right, the new theme makes it very Louisiana, and I love that. That's exactly what we want to see. We just needed them to do kind of like other stuff. Now, let me be clear. I don't think those are going to be the jerseys here. So don't get excited for those unless they change some things that have already been in the works. But I think it would be really cool. And one of those things. Benoit Robinson says, Jake, spill the tea here. No, I can't spill too much, but I could tell you that was pretty good. Kevin Byers says the Peligators. Something like that. It was pretty cool. I think it was a little too extreme, but it was pretty cool. Bayou Boys, right? You know, you've seen Zion do that on the Jordans that he does and everything. The Zion shoes have it was like the Jordan 34s or whatever they were, had the like Bayou Boys coloring and everything. It was very cool, but I love the new court. I love them doing things like that and kind of just embracing the state, embracing the region a little bit more than the specific city. You know, you could easily pitch, just like the Saints are, right? Yeah, it's the New Orleans Saints, but how many people in Mobile and Alabama and Mississippi love the Saints too? And it's kind of like a Gulf South, a Gulf State team, as opposed to just New Orleans and trying to get more buy-in and fans and embracement is not a word from other areas. And I think that's really cool. So Pelicans doing something like that is pretty great, and that would be a lot of fun, and I'm glad they're doing that on the court, and we'll see what everything else has to do with it when the City Edition jerseys drop in a little bit. David Alvarado says, crazy to think potential Darius Garland was to us and it turned into Jackson Hayes and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Yeah, it's one of those things. I wasn't that high on Garland going into the draft, but I mean, it's hindsight, right? They also used that trade to dump Solomon Hill's real terrible contract. And then they used that money that they saved by getting rid of Solomon Hill to sign JJ Redick, right? So you've got to kind of put Redick into that as well. The Redick move didn't work out kind of like we thought it would or hoped it would, but it was the right idea on things. And I think that's something to kind of consider and look at with some of those things. Is Willy Hernangomez still with the team? No, he signed back in Spain. He's with Barcelona, right? Or Real Madrid. Carlitos Way says, where's the center? Forgot Harden. Not pun. He's a basket case. The backup center is Cody Zeller, right? That's who they signed just to bring like veteran experience on a minimum contract. Just no big deal. Just come in, do his thing, play some spot minutes. I think it's as simple as that. Noel Star Bar says, I would buy Zion shoes if they look good. I think they are all terrible. I think they look fine. I like the ones. I like some of the colorways that they had. The twos weren't bad either, to be perfectly honest. I like some of the colorways too. I'm going to be curious to see what else they do with his shoes and things, but certainly him not playing games is probably going to start hurting his endorsements. We've seen some of the lawsuits around that too. He needs to have a big season. He really needs to have a big season for everything because I don't know. It's kind of make or break when it comes to that stuff. Aramis Jones says, Zion being leaner is good. It's better than the bulky frame. Him being leaner would mean he's losing weight, but maintaining at least the muscle mass, which means he keeps the strength. Look, I don't like to get too much into the weight stuff, right? If you can play well at whatever weight, that's fine. But, when you play kind of with the force that he has, with the aggressiveness that he has, when you jump and land, that puts pressure on your joints, torque on your body, and all of those. And if you're leaner, it just means that that's not going to be as much. Go back to, it was against the Phoenix Suns, right? When he had the video of him dunking when he wanted to play in that series and was doing that dunk from the free throw line or something. And you saw the court kind of bend underneath him. And everyone was like, oh, it's a fake court, or the video's CGI'd and stuff. And the answer to that is these courts, especially the practice courts, have a lot of give in them to kind of help on these guys' joints and bodies and things like that. But when you jump and you land and the court sinks down 2-3 inches with the impact that you put on it, tells you kind of the force that he is generating and everything. And it's a lot. So being leaner is only going to help that sort of thing. You want him to still be strong, but you've got to wonder if, the weight has impacted some of these injuries, at least a little bit. I can't say without being a doctor on some of this. I just play an expert here without actually being one. But it factors into everything. Thomas Atkinson says, hey, Jake, I'm subscribed to your channel and I make sure to watch the show even if I miss the live show. Am I still considered an everydayer? Oh, yes. Right now, if you're listening 3 days a week, because we have 3 shows a week, you are an everydayer. When we're back to 5 days a week, which is starting, I think, the week of September 11th is when I'm going to go back to 5 days a week. And you listen 5 days a week, you are an everydayer. And guess what? If you listen 1 day a week, that's still cool too. I love you. Thank you for tuning in and supporting the channel, even if it's 1 day a week. If you listen 1 day a week, though, just try making it 2. Add a show to however many you listen to, unless it's 5 days a week, in which case y'all are good. You can then go listen to Locked On NBA, our national show that I co-host on Wednesdays with John Corrales of Locked On Celtics here. Mr. Bird says, first time seeing you live, family. Well, thank you for being here. Inferno says, are they changing all the jerseys? We saw the new statement edition jerseys, the red ones. We'll get a new city edition jerseys. I know there's been some talk about changing the blue and white home ones, but I don't know if those are going to be that. I don't know the specific timeline on some of that. Lonnie Live already bought the new statement edition jersey. The red jersey wasn't the one that needed to change, but that is the easiest one out of all of them to change. And I do like the Crescent City on it at the very least. Benoit Robinson asks, how do you feel about Griff? Do you think he's made the right moves? Do you see him here in 5 years? So I think Griff has done overall a good job. Injuries are what's derailed the team. It has not been all of the moves. There are certainly some misses that he has had, right? Jackson Hayes, Nickeil Alexander-Walker hasn't been great. JJ Redick, that signing in theory was good, but, he's hit on draft picks in Trey Murphy. He's hit on Herb Jones. Dyson Daniels, I'm still a believer in. Don't love the Jordan Hawkins pick, but the fit makes perfect sense for this team. he's had a lot of luck with these undrafted guys, Jose Alvarado and, like Najee Marshall and others. So they've done a good job of like finding talent at very, very good value, I think. He got Brandon Ingram to re-sign. He got a haul for Anthony Davis and for Drew Holiday. Got an extension done with Zion Williamson. Those are all really good things. Hired Willie Green. We all really like Willie Green, I think, as the head coach. They've done a lot, and now they're retooling, the player performance and care team per the reports out there. So that type of stuff, I think, is important, and he's not just kind of like resting back. So, yeah, I think he's done like a good job. There's things he hasn't done well. He needed to have built a much better relationship with Zion Williamson than he did. We've rightly criticized him for that, made fun of him for that, probably in a bit of an unfair way, the piano episode that I did. But there is, I don't think he's been bad, right? Like, you still have a ways to go, but in theory, if this team is healthy, they're good, right? Like, someone said it before the show even started. It's like the first thing that's here. Let me scroll all the way up. McEvander Fargo. It's time, Jake. It's time. Jake knows. Pelicans health, right? This show every day could simply be, are they healthy? If they're healthy, they're going to be good. If they're healthy, they won the game last night. Oh, they were injured, they lost. Like, my job could be so easy here if I could make my show like 3 minutes long. So it's health. They're good if they're healthy. It really is as simple as that. If for whatever reason they're healthy and they're bad, fire everyone and make complete changes. But the chances of that happening are so slim that I don't think it's going to happen at all. So there you go. Inferno says Griff always fixes his mistakes. Like, he's done a good job with that. He's done a good job. Will he be here in 5 years? That is, going to put him on like a 9-year timeline. That's a long time for an executive in the league, but if they're winning, yeah, they're thinking about the future. They're worried about the salary cap and what they need to do with that. Like, all of that stuff is okay, I think, right? So all of those things are good. I don't know. I think he's done a good enough job here. Denzel Horton says, every day your comment, but I am late though. It's okay. You made it, and I appreciate you being here, my man Denzel. What else do we have before we start to wrap up the show here? Trey says, do you think Zion is going to be great on defense? When he was healthy last year, only 29 game sample size, so it's a little bit small. That was the best we've seen him defensively, and there were moments when he actively looked good. He was trying. He was lost at times, but he looked like good defensively. I'm not going to say great. I'm not going to say like above average, but he looked about average to above average at times. I will take that with what he gives you offensively. I thought he was fine defensively, like almost underrated in that sense. So I think he could be good defensively next year. I don't think he's going to be great. I don't think he's going to be like an all defensive guy ever. But when you watched him play in college, like, the dude just has a nose for the ball on defense, similar like Jose Alvarado and some other players, where they just instinctually kind of know how to attack and get the ball. Go back to his first game in Summer League, right, when the earthquake happened, where he just ripped the ball out of Kevin Knox's hands after Kevin Knox got it off like an inbound or something, or a rebound, just ripped out and then dunked over him, right? He just kind of knew to go for it and went and attacked like a shark or something like that, smelling blood in the water. And I like that kind of instinct out of players on this team. There was one other question I wanted to answer here. NOLA Star Bar. I saw a trade proposal for Mitchell Robinson. What are your thoughts? Don't think I've heard you speak on him as a possible rim protector. There's some spelling mistakes there. But possible rim protector. I've come around on him more so than I used to. Like, there's some maturity off-court issues, right? That's been kind of following him around for a long, long time. I think he's kind of worked through some of that stuff. Good defender, good rebounder, good shot blocker. Hold on, let me see. The salary is always the question with this, right? How much does he make this year, and what's his future contract look like? I have looked him up before. I can tell you that, because he clearly has been, that would be fine. Okay. He makes $15.68 million this year. It declines 14.318 next year, and then $13 million the final year of that season of the deal. Like, I don't hate that. Like, that's a fine one. If you want to go and get Mitchell Robinson, like, yeah, I could be okay with that. You still need to move on from Jonas Valanciunas. You probably need to have a pick in there or something. Like, But yeah, if you wanted to upgrade there, like I think he would be a step up a little bit from what they want on the defensive side of the ball and how he gets used offensively. Rebounder, shot blocking, you don't need a big offensive guy there, but I think he could be useful player. Like I don't totally hate that. I don't think he's an amazing like off-ball defender or anything like that, like weak side defender, but in terms of shot blocking, like sure, I think that's good. What else do we have in here? IM says, why is the team so focused on a small ball five? EJ Liddell and Nance ain't it. I mean, I don't know. They like closing with Nance. It works. Liddell was just like one of those, you have to draft him for where he fell into the draft, given kind of everything, right? Like I had him as like 19th, 20th on my board and they got him at 42. Like you just draft that every time. And so he's on your team. You go and invest in that guy's development. Chris Holiday says, off topic, but if Trey ever gets traded, I will be very sad. Seems like a fun guy. He is a fun guy. Hold on. Do I have this here? I don't have the drop. I don't know if I can load it in. I have him cutting a promo for Locked On Pelicans, which was fun. I need to start using that more, but I don't have it here set up right now to be able to do it. So that would be good. Trappa BG says, would you consider bringing in Whiteside for rim protection? Nope. I'm good. Don't need Hassan Whiteside on the team at all. At all. Don't give me like those kind of players. Like the locker room, the chemistry stuff is good. You don't need to, and like, yeah, you just don't need to bring in someone like that, right? Like you don't need to rock the boat for a guy who's going to be your 15th guy on the roster. Like just don't need anything like that. I think I saw someone mention Christian Wood earlier in the chat. I don't want to scroll all the way back up, but same thing on that. Like you could probably get him for kind of cheap, but man, just like a locker room issue with those sorts of things. And it's just not worth it for the role that they would play on the team. If they were going to be a starter for you, it's a different story, but I don't think all of that stuff. So I think that's something to kind of keep in mind here. Mr. Bird says, man, stop looking at NBA analysis and sham. They all clickbait. Jake is the source. Okay. Well, I appreciate that. Look, there's other people that are great to pay attention to as well. And I don't think it's all clickbait as much as people do think it is. And it's kind of just like how it goes a little bit too with all of that. Links Da Vinci says, do you think Z and BI are in current top 5 of their position? I don't think Ingram is. If you kind of look at those wing small forwards, there's a lot of guys I would put ahead of him. You've still got LeBron James, Kawhi. You'd argue Paul George. He's probably above Paul George, but you've got, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and that's just like right off the top of my head, and I'm probably forgetting, Kevin Durant. Like you have people like that are still ahead of him currently. BI can get into that mix with everything. David Alvarado asks, what would this team look like if we made a move for Miles Turner and Malcolm Brogdon last season? I mean, they'd look different. You'd have the center. I think Miles Turner makes so much sense on this team. I don't think he's going to get traded. They called and asked about him, but I don't think Indiana wants to move him right now. So I think that's an interesting one. Like you could have used the scoring from Brogdon off the bench, right? 6th man of the year. That's would have fixed the offense. But again, they don't need that if they're healthy. If they're healthy, this roster as is good. The Athletic just did kind of like power rankings, and you've probably seen the Pelicans coming in at 23rd. That is about moves just made this offseason. It's not like where they think they're going to finish or like teams 1 through 30. It was if you're ranking all of the moves that every team made, Pelicans come in 23rd out of 30 because they really didn't do anything, right? And the reason they're not lower than that is because it's like, well, they're going to get Zion back and he's in theory going to be healthy, so they're going to be good, but there's some skepticism behind it. If you read that article, and you should, I like The Athletic, I pay for it, I really enjoy it, they talk about this of it's like, this team's really good, so they don't need to make any moves. If you make 0 moves, but like kind of like the team did, you should be like 30th or 28th, 29th, and they weren't because there's so much talent here when it comes to all of those things. Leon Alvarado says, do you think Z or BI, maybe even both, can make the All-NBA team? Zion definitely can. He's got to be, if he's healthy, he will make it. If he plays 65 plus games, which is the minimum threshold to hit that now, he will 100,000% make an All-NBA team. Simple as that. BI's tougher because there's a lot of players at those wing positions and it's kind of crowded, and he would need a very, very good season where he steps up defensively to get on there. So yes, I definitely think that they can. Zion has a much better chance of it than Brandon Ingram does. All right, we've gone for almost 40 minutes here, so we're going to wrap up the show here, but I appreciate y'all joining and asking all the questions. If I didn't get to yours or if one comes up later, we're going to be right back here Thursday, 7 p.m. Central next week. We do the live shows every single week. These are a lot of fun. It's my chance to interact with y'all, and I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you all being here, being an everydayer, or just listening once a week and making Locked On Pelicans part of your day somewhere. That means the world to me. I cannot thank you enough. That's why I do this. It's why the show is free and 5 days a week for y'all so that you can get the content that you want. So subscribe wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Second listen, Ross Jackson, Locked On Saints. I'm going to see him this weekend, and I can't wait. And I'll tell him that all y'all are going to go subscribe and that y'all already listen to him. He's like the nicest human alive. So this has been fun. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. We'll be back Monday. We'll start looking at FIBA. We'll recap some of the games for Team USA and talk about how Brandon Ingram is doing. I love y'all, and I'll see y'all then.